Graham, whenever you're ready.
Thanks, John. Hi, Bob.
How are you, Graham?
I'm good. You all right?
Well, good, thanks.
Good. You said Saturday, quite rightly, was a crazy day. What has that done in terms of belief, conviction for you and the players?
I've said many times that when a team goes through a rough stretch, you need some results. You need some things to turn the tide a little bit. And Saturday provided a really good moment for us. And the players were excited. There was a real pride in the dressing room after the game, where at that moment the details didn't matter, the outcome mattered, and the fact that when it looked like things were going against us, we were able to find a way to turn it around, and so that when that happens with any team at any moment, that's something that you feel good about, and as a manager, you want to make sure that the players can enjoy that. And then, of course, as we then get into the week, we continue to look at all the things that need work, because we certainly know that that part continues. But it felt very good for the group. They've earned it, and it was really important, especially at the Liberty. Was the loudest for me that I've heard the Liberty so far, and I know just like I'm saying that it was important for the players and for the club. Also, I would imagine very important for the supporters, because they also get frustrated when you go through a difficult period. They ask questions, they wonder what's going on, and then everybody needs something that brings the belief back and reinforces the good work.
And how do you now look at the table and your chances of getting out of the bottom three?
I'm very aware of the table, but I don't look at it too often. I still try in a steady, strong way to work to see if we can become a better team, more complete team, more consistent team. That's our football. That's our mentality. That's knowing how to finish games. That's everything. And so the result is a positive reinforcement, but it doesn't change the fact that we still have a lot more work to do.
You've got Spurs this Saturday. You've got a pretty awful record against them. Have you found out why?
Well, I've heard about the record. I've gone back and watched some of last year's match there. Let's start with the fact that last year and now again this year, Spurs are quite a good team. And when you play them, you have to do a lot of things really well. They're going to press, make it difficult to find a passing rhythm. But if we can play quickly, if we can get from one side to the other, some things that we've done in recent weeks. We showed some edits today of good moments like that at Goodison, where our quick number of passes got us out of pressure on one side of the field and into space on the other side of the field. So that's something that clearly you understand is important when you play Spurs. And like many teams, many good teams, they've got interesting ways of trying to open up space themselves when they have the ball. They push their outside backs very high. They bring players like Christian Eriksen inside. Dele Alli is good finding space. Harry Kane's a good striker. So it's a good test. It's a good team. But it's an important opportunity for us, because the idea that now we can build on a good result and then have some confidence and go to White Hart Lane and go after them in the right way and play for 3 points. That's our mentality.
And to back it up with another result, another win possibly, would confirm that talk about a turning point would be made a bit more realistic.
Absolutely. The game last week, as I said, was a positive step. But if you can build on it, if you can put a stretch of good performances together, a stretch of results together, then the conversation changes in a much better way. So we all know that, and it's step by step. So we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. It's a good test, but it's a real opportunity. It's a real opportunity to go there and like I said, play our football. And again, even in some of the preparation work today, we really went out of our way to remind the players that here are some of the things that we'll be up against. But what's more important than any of that is who we are and our football and our mentality. So I really want to make sure that we continue to do a good job of preparing for opponents, but that we never let the opponent take away from our confidence in our football. And that's an area where we want to continue to be very positive.
You mentioned Harry Kane. Spurs have announced today he's signed a new long-term contract with them. Is he a guy you're a big admirer of, and how do you deal with Harry Kane?
I think he's a very good striker. You need real concentration throughout a match because most of all for me, he's a terrific finisher, and so he can. You give him any kind of chance at all, and he's got a real solid record of hitting the target and scoring different kind of goals. So, I mean, he's a finisher, and that kind of striker where everybody's got to have the concentration going for every moment, because the slightest lapse, that's when he pounces. So it's mainly a test of awareness and concentration.
The club have announced today, Bob, that Brian Flynn is coming here. Can you just tell us where Brian fits into your recruitment procedure?
Well, first of all, I met Brian at the hotel in Liverpool. So he was there when we arrived, and Kurt introduced me. I know that he played a real important role with some of the real success that has taken place, and his eye for talent paid off in the past. And so when we talk about recruitment, recruitment starts with people who can spot talent. And Brian's track record in that regard at Swansea is special, obviously also his experience as a manager. I'm looking forward to working with him, getting to know him better. But that type of football man, I think it's fantastic for all of us as we keep trying to move things forward.
So will he have a role in the players you may be looking to sign in the January window?
Absolutely. That's why he's on board. So with an eye for talent, with anytime we're putting a list together in certain positions, you need people who can bring up a lot of different kind of names, and then when you get to the back end of that process, and you're sometimes prioritizing the opinion of people who have experience, who have, I keep saying it, a real eye for talent. I think that makes the discussions better, and then ultimately gives us the best chance possible to find the right players to improve our team.
And are you fairly far down the road with getting a few of those players on board?
I think we're in the middle of the road with that. So I think we've identified some players. We're constantly trying to identify more. There's good discussions going on. So I wouldn't want to make it seem like it's at the end of the process. But I think we're in the middle of a team effort to use January in a good way.
And in terms of your budgets, are you happy with what you have?
The discussions so far have been positive, so let's wait and see.
There's going to be more discussions on that front?
I think so, sure.
And in terms of the next few weeks, you look at where you are in the table, as I say, are you a lot more content in your job here now as manager than perhaps you were 2 weeks ago?
Am I content?
Yeah.
No, I'm very content. I have said many times I understood the challenge when I came. I have been motivated by the challenge every day since I arrived. Continue to get to know the players better. Continue to understand everything about the club better. But I listen. I observe. I think I pick things up quickly. So on that end, for me, I'm more determined than ever to bring the kind of leadership that Swansea needs. So for me, it's great. And again, there'll always be talk, speculation. You can't be successful as a manager if you spend any time with that, if it looks like that's bothering you, or no matter where you work, you understand that if things don't go right, there might be somebody one day who says, okay, that's it, we've had enough. But you're not much of a leader if that shows. And so you know the old adage that you become a manager when you were fired the first time. So I've been fired a few times. So that doesn't bother me one bit. All right. What I understand is the opportunity, and then the part that says I'm going to give everything I have every day, and I owe that to the club. I owe that to the players. I owe that to the supporters, and nothing will ever change me in that regard. So.
Okay, just lastly from me, talking of managers in the spotlight, Gareth Southgate has been confirmed as the New England manager. As a guy who's managed in the international environment and at major tournaments specifically, what advice would you have for Gareth?
Be yourself. It's obviously a big job, but he's smart. He has playing experience. Don't get caught up with any of the distractions. Be yourself, be confident, establish a good relationship with the players. And I think he's an excellent choice. And for me, it's a good statement. And for him now, he's the kind of guy that I think will do things the right way.
Thanks, Bob.
Fran?
Bob, I know what you're saying about Spurs, about what a strong team they are, but they've shown chinks in their armour recently, particularly in the Champions League. What have you really identified, and how will you go about exploiting it?
Again, even though they've gone through a stretch where there have been some games that haven't gone exactly the way they wanted, you still have to start with what they're about when they step on the field, and so they're going to try to press you. And so the starting point is still in those moments that you can find the right pass, the ball can move quickly, that you can play out of pressure. So those things are important. I think there are opportunities in transition when you have players like Kyle Walker and Danny Rose, who are very attack-minded fullbacks. That also means that the opportunity is there with space behind. So I think that the ability to transition quickly and get at them in those situations is very, very important. And then, in all these games, there's the part that on one hand, you want to be organized. You want to be, you want to make sure your lines are tight, that kind of thing. But it's got to be done within the right kind of intensity. It's got to still require commitment to close down and get out and get up and get after people. If it doesn't have that, then you just feel like you're giving too much of the game away. And we've talked about it. That was the feeling that we had for 30-some minutes after Pogba's goal. All right, I could bore you all. I could pull that video out and I could show you many plays from that 30-some minutes. And what you'd see is that oftentimes, positionally, we were fine. But just being in the right position, if you're not in the right moments, reacting fast, closing down, getting out after people, the players in the Premier League are too good. So if you're not taking that time and that space away and doing it consistently and confidently, then you're still allowing the other team to dictate the terms too much. And we were not satisfied with that. And you've heard me. I took responsibility for that. But now the message that we have made very clear is, sure, let's keep our lines tight. Sure, we need to be compact in the right moments. That's part of football. That's on page 1 of most textbooks. But within that structure, let's be aggressive. Let's play football. Let's try to make it difficult for them. And so for me, that's the key, and that's what some of the teams have been able to do against them.
I don't want to take away from Crystal Palace because we were all thrilled by the result, but obviously there were comments made afterwards about some of the problems with defence. You mentioned about Harry Kane being a superb finisher, so obviously that's going to be a danger area. How far have your defenders, how far has their confidence taken any sort of a boost, bearing in mind obviously there was some criticism levelled there? I mean, is it a case that you've got a team with two halves at the moment almost, that your strikers, particularly Fernando, will obviously have taken a huge amount of confidence from that, but obviously the defence has not been as tight as you would have wanted it to be. So is there a difference in confidence between the players now?
No. Oftentimes when there's a crazy match, if you look deeper, set pieces have a lot to do with crazy results. And so last week was a prime example of a game where set pieces on both sides totally threw the game into a tailspin, right? And obviously 2-1 and 3-1 were set pieces for us, okay? We go 5-6 minutes after it's 3-1, looking, for me, pretty solid. We lose a bad ball in the midfield, so, I mean, it's football. Can you imagine? Here's Leroy. He scores the second and the third goal. But then Leroy also gets a little bit careless with the back pass that Benteke then puts him on the run. Jordy does pretty well to chase him down, and the ball goes out for a corner. But then when we can't handle it, and that is one where Dan wins the first ball, so that's part of defending set pieces. But then when the ball comes down, Jay Fulton's been pinned low. It's a tough position for him. It makes it difficult for Lucas. We've got other players around, and the reaction is slow. So, and then at 3-2, what's happened? Yes, we've given them new life, and then there's no explaining the third goal. It's just, if we thought the header at Goodison Park was a crazy goal, the one that deflects off at Jack's head is even crazier, right? So, yes, a game where we have defensive issues, and I've talked before about things like reactions and concentration, but don't make the mistake of thinking, well, the attackers are good then when it's 5-4 and the defenders are bad. All right, this is way more complicated than that, and so We have to continue to make more defensive plays. That includes set pieces. That includes the first ball and the second phase. You come up with different ways to work on these things. You think about different possibilities in terms of how you might defend, for example, corners. You look into those possibilities. So, you try to work through the process and reestablish some confidence in those ways. I think if I'm right, since, for me in 6 games, we've given up 4 goals on corners. So that's not a good record. The first one was at the Emirates. And again, it was a ball that got played in, and Jack Cork got the first play on the ball. And I think he headed it off of one of our guys, and it bounced right back. And the man that Jack had started with was Walcott. And now, in the process. But when you get the first play on the ball, the ability to head the ball clear and make sure that then you move out and that you're not still chasing around the box, that's key, all right? The goal against Stoke was similar. The ball got played in, and Neil Taylor was in the first zone, and he got the first play on the ball. Now it's up in the air, and then we're kind of looking, and while we're looking, Joe Allen's reacting, and then when the ball comes back in, Boney is smelling out where it's going faster than us. So, these are the kind of situations where it's not easy to replicate some of those things in training, but you try. You try to create situations where, if you're working on set pieces, the first ball goes in, and then as everybody deals with the first ball, a second ball is put right back in, right? Just so that they very quickly have to switch gears and deal with the next play. So these are things that we'll continue to work through. But it's not an issue of attacking confidence and now defending without confidence. It's part of what I mean when I always say becoming a more complete team. Thank you.
BBC at the back, yeah.
Yes, please, Bob. Sorry, just a couple from me. Hello, can you see me?
Yes.
Back here. I wasn't to ask you many. So the way that you've just described all of those goals that you've conceded recently suggests just how much you've watched them. You've been able to become a bit of an expert. Do you accept that survival this season is really only going to be possible when you start looking more likely at keeping clean sheets?
I think that is a very important part of us becoming a complete team. The ability to keep a clean sheet, the ability to win games 1-0. We thought that Watford was a step in the right direction, and we've not been able to follow through on that. Again, you can dissect all the goals, but in the end, there's a mentality about being a team that's hard to play against and about being a team that knows how to keep clean sheets, and we've got to continue to talk like that and find a way to make that more a part of who we are.
We're into December now, traditionally a very busy month in British football, as I'm sure you would have seen from the fixture list. And, aside from Spurs away, there's some important games for you coming up against mainly teams in the bottom half. Do you sense this is going to be a defining month for you in terms of your prospects this season?
I think it's a critical period between now and the beginning of the year. So as much as, again, I keep getting asked questions about the January window, I also understand that between now and January, there's a lot of work to do and some real important, I shouldn't even say some real important matches, all important matches. So busy schedule right through the holidays, the opportunity now to turn things around, to put a bad start behind us and really give a little bit more belief to the fact that we're ready to finish the season in a strong way.
And you were pleased, I'm going to ask a question about the January window now. As you just hinted, will fans expect a lot of incomings and outgoings then this January?
I don't want to say a lot. I think we have to be smart with how we work. Could that include the possibility of outgoing? Yeah, it's always possible, because part of what smart teams do is consider options. And so you see what's available in terms of bringing in, and then sometimes in the process you have to think if there's interest in a player, does it make sense? So it's a two-way street in that regard. But I would not think that we're talking about that many moves. Right? I think we still feel that there's a nucleus that's strong, and the idea is to add to that and use the work that's been done so far, together with some smart additions, to go into the second half the right way.
Thank you. And just finally, I have to ask you about the story that's dominated sports news recently, and the allegations of child abuse in football. I know you've only been in this country for a couple of months, but your experience in football, do you think it's a safe place for children to be these days, and do you welcome the investigation that the FA has announced?
I welcome the investigation. One of the greatest joys you can have in life is working with children. But that requires also the fullest responsibility. And I've been incredibly fortunate because, in addition to being able to be a professional manager along the way, I've had many opportunities to work with young players. And I think back to experiences I still hear from a lot of those players. And if you are a good example, if you show them the right way to do things, if you help them with confidence, if you do things right, then the feeling that you have, because they'll never forget it. I hear from so many players that I've coached along the way when they were younger. And so whenever a story hits, and look, it's not just been in football. I mean, unfortunately, you do read and know of many stories that involve youth sports, that involve coaches, that involve teachers. So the positions that I'm referring to again are positions of such important, the role you can play for children in their lives when done correctly. So it breaks your heart when you hear about these things, and absolutely it needs to be investigated in a complete way, and you only hope that the investigations also put pressure on all, again, football clubs, youth organizations, to make sure that when hiring and bringing people and putting people in these kind of positions, that it's done that it's done in the best way possible to make sure that these things just don't continue to happen.
Have you ever come across anything in your experience, and anyone come to you and sort of said anything? Is this something that you sort of led any contact with?
No.
Thankfully.
Yes. Yep. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Very much. We do written across the way as usual.